morning. Good morning. So, if you are coming in, welcome to part one of a free morning part series where I'm going to be breaking down some popular diets that you may look to do over the January period. There's lots around which diet shall I do. So, I want to touch on today, starting with the first two that we're going to cover today. And over the next 3 days, we'll hopefully cover ones that you maybe have looked at, maybe that you've seen doing in a non-biased but actually helpful way, because actually every diet has benefits, whether it's gluten-free, carnivore, Atkins, vegan, vegetarian, they all have benefits. So the first one I want to talk about is a gluten-free diet, and this has probably had like the most that's probably been killed a little bit by looking like more of a fad, probably because it can be done unnecessarily. A lot of people might have read stuff or seen stuff where gluten, because it causes XYZ in people who are maybe gluten intolerant, however that may be. I'll come on to that in a second. Or celiac disease. People may have actually gone, you know what, I'm going to go gluten-free as well because it causes these autoimmune conditions. It causes psoriasis. It can cause this. It can cause this. And there may be merit to that in people with a certain allergy. But for all it's like, go on a gluten-free diet, it solves all, which is obviously not correct. But for all of that, there are a lot of benefits. Like I said, I'm going to make this really balanced. Like there are a lot of benefits to this. Like I follow a gluten-free diet myself for many reasons. But one of the reasons of the benefits are in terms of it reduces your fermentable carbohydrates. So people without celiac disease may experience lots of benefits when they cut out gluten. They might go, say someone has IBS, they might have like irritable bowel syndrome, other bowel issues, bloating, flatulence, and they might notice it quite a benefit when they go gluten-free. And this might not be because they've gone gluten-free. Now, this actually could be that they've lowered the fermentable carbohydrates in their diet in general, which are known as FODMAPs. So you might have heard of FODMAP foods before. It's quite a challenging, restrictive diet to follow. So you could argue here that actually just going gluten-free will reduce that and actually end up someone being more low carb. We will cover low carb, by the way, which by default reduces the fermentability of the carbohydrate. And what FODMAPs are essentially fermentable carbohydrates, which are most carbohydrates, a lot of carbohydrates, fermentable foods rather. They go through our small intestine and are largely undigested, then our large intestine will have to ferment them. But I won't go into it too much, but we might have things called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which can cause IBS as well, and symptoms around that, and gut distress. So actually going on a gluten-free diet may relieve a lot of them. Perhaps it's almost like not because of it directly, but indirectly through the FODMAP. But if someone has celiac, etc., that can be a benefit, of course, as well. But also around gluten-free, by default, someone will probably eat fewer carbohydrates, which might not be a bad thing for them. And let's face it, by going on a gluten-free diet, I actually don't think you're at risk, and I'm going to go over this the whole time, of like a deficiency in anything really. Like there's no like real key minerals or nutrients that it's like if you go gluten-free, you're going to miss out on. You do very well if you replace them. Often people actually replace them with more higher protein foods. They're going to get more protein in the diet. They might be accompanied with things like omega-3, with other essential fats. They might just go the gluten-free variety of it, and by default they're probably still going to get the fiber in, etc. So I wouldn't really worry about anything in that side. So a gluten-free diet can definitely work for people. It's a simple way to reduce carbohydrates potentially, and a simple way to potentially reduce fermentable carbohydrates for fermentable foods rather in someone's diet, which may help with IBS. So there are some benefits there. So that pretty much sums up the gluten-free diet. Gluten is a type of protein, even though it's not seen as a protein. It is actually a protein, the actual thing of gluten. Doesn't mean a slice of bread is good source of protein, but it is a type of protein, a low quality protein, albeit found in breads, pastas, things like that. So on to the vegan diet now, and this has become very popular. I'm not just going to sit here and say it's inferior, full stop. But what I am going to say is, people do it for many reasons, and it can be done well and it can be done less well. And that's the important thing to consider. And it's more about looking at, okay, if I go vegan, what foods am I missing out on? Let's put it that way. Okay, so vitamin B12, I'm probably going to be missing out on that. Where can I get that from? Do I need to supplement with that, or can I include that in certain foods? Do I need to eat more cereals? And now this is like a weight loss aside on here. Eat more cereals, more fortified foods. Can I add more nut milks in? Can I add more nutritional yeast in? Because we know that that's a vegan source of that. We know from research that generally levels of creatine are lower, which could be linked to mental health, cognitive health. We know that energy levels could be at risk. And then we've got to look at, okay, I'm not eating like meat. Where am I getting my iron from at the moment? Should I supplement with iron? Yes, there's some in things like greens, like spinach, but this is an iron, type of iron called non-heme. Non-heme is not very well absorbed or converted in the body to heme iron, which you'd find in, like, say, beef. So you would need to have a hell of a lot of that. Yes, there's a lot of iron on paper in spinach, but it has to be converted to heme iron, and the conversion from non-heme to heme isn't very good. So do I need to supplement with that? Omega-3, again, if you're not eating fish, and this is where it comes in terms of, if you're vegetarian, you might serve better because you might go, in terms of the calcium side of things, you might end up going down the route of still having dairy in your diet. But calcium, if you're not having dairy, yes, again, you can get this from plant-based foods, but you might want to consider supplement with that. Omega-3, back to where I was. So an algae supplement can be a good one on a vegan diet, because you've got to consider where am I getting that. Again, with iron, like beans, spinach, there's a few things you can do to help with iron absorption. Take vitamin C around when you have that, and avoid tea and coffee. Tea and coffee contain tannins, which are great, but they also bind to iron receptors, which may impact the absorption of iron. So you might want to consider that. The standard things, maybe choline as well, you might want to look at supplementing with. Vitamin D3 is normal. I recommend that, full stop anyway. And that would be my biggest go-to. Then it's about looking at, okay, in terms of protein intake, I would like to think it's easier to replace protein these days, but the alternatives are often very pricey, and very processed. We're not really sure how good they are. The amino acids, a lot of the soy-based ones are maybe at least as good. Maybe at best as good as like the meat alternatives at best, but they are lacking in then other minerals in them. And they have seen quite a sharp decline in the sales of those foods. They almost exploded. Then there's been a bit of a decline, whether that's taste, whether that's whatever. So it is possible to get enough protein then, like beans, legumes, lentils, and then having like tofu, things like that would be my advice on that area. So that is the first part, and there's two ones we've covered in there: the gluten-free diet and the vegan diet. Things to consider whether you're vegan or not. Can I add more beans, legumes, and things into my diet if I'm looking to get more protein, even from a omnivore-based diet? Gluten-free, is it gluten-free, or is it the FODMAP foods you need to consider? Might be something to look at. So I hope that helps. And if you are coming in with our free 5-day kickstart on Monday the 9th of January, we will help you create a diet for you with this. That's Monday the 9th of January. I'll put the link in the comments. Any questions, let me know. Have an awesome day, and I will see you soon.